Hey everyone, welcome to Optimized Health. I am Josh Porter, your host, and we are kicking off 2025 with one of my favorite people in the whole world, Mr. Ed Jones.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah. On my way over here this morning, I was thinking, if somebody asked me to describe you in two words, I'd say mentor and friend.
Aw.
You've been a huge impact in my life as a mentor in so many ways, from a lifestyle management standpoint that we're going to talk about today with longevity medicine and healthy benefits, and just also even from a business standpoint and how to navigate all the ways of starting out in business. And so you've been really, truly somebody who's impacted me greatly.
Well, it goes the opposite direction toward you. And we don't have this club that you and I are in is pretty small. And I don't have many those folks that I really trust that I can talk to things about. And you've been one of those great friends to me also.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's dig into it. So 2025, one of the things that I'm really excited about as we were kind of vision casting with our team was what do we think would be the best way to come out of the gates in 2025 that would speak to our audience, give them great value. And it was a unanimous decision that we were going to take 6 of the top experts from Nutrition World and ask them some hot topics in their field of expertise and give that to the people. And you just happen to be numero uno. So today we're going to talk about longevity. Are you good with that? You, in particular, have a unique story because you've been practicing a healthy living for quite some time, right?
Quite some time.
Yeah. So give us, for maybe a few people who don't know who you are, give us a little bit of a background of how you got into this and, just your health journey.
I do believe I was born to do this. I don't think there's any doubt. And I remember, and I've never said this anywhere, so this will be the first. I remember being either 6 or 7 years old, and I went to a graduation or something in an auditorium with my father. And at the lower level of this auditorium was this woman in a wheelchair. And back in those days, kids didn't do a lot of stuff. You went one place every month or two, maybe, because you stayed home.
Yeah.
And I remember so well saying, "Why is she in a wheelchair, Daddy?" And he said, "Well, I know her, and she has a disease called lung cancer." And I said, "What does that mean?" And he said, "That means she's going to die soon." And for some reason, that rocked me because I remember thinking I didn't know people died.
Wow.
First off.
Yeah. And
then I started thinking, what reasons caused her to be unhealthy? Because he said she's very unhealthy. And I don't know. It was that moment I thought there's got to be answers that somebody knows somewhere. Well, we do know some, but we've certainly learned a lot since 1963. That would be 1963. And then as I started to get older, in my about 10 or 12 years old, my dad had a Shackley salesman come to the house, and I was mesmerized by her conversation that your health is determined by your foods and your nutrition that you put into your body. We didn't know anything about microplastics and glyphosates and all the chemicals because really we had far less back then. We didn't have to worry. But the fact that food was a healing mechanism just blew me away. And I was about 13 at the time. Well, by 14, I had walked into Cosmopolitan Spa here in Chattanooga and caught the bug of working out, which just stayed with me for this many 50 plus years. Well, I got the exercise down, but then I kept thinking about supplementation. We knew so little back then. We had yeast tablets and liver tablets and B complex. I mean, the health food store was pretty small. It was kind of a granola store, and kind of half the people were hippies that shopped in there, and the other half were people that just were interested like myself. And so I went to college, and before college, I got a job at GNC right before I went, and I fell in love with just talking to people about health, nutrition, and supplements. Went to college, became a police officer, but it never left my mind. I studied constantly. Even being midnight shift, I remember having a cassette recorder in my police car with people who talked herbal medicine and nutritional medicine, and hours on end, I would just listen. And I did love being a police officer, too, but I knew my calling was more of this. And my dad was a great entrepreneur, businessman in the cemetery business. And so I came to him and said, can I open a health food store? And he said, I will co-sign for you. I opened on Four Squares Mall in 1979 with a $25,000 loan. You know how far that would go today.
Yeah, not very. Yeah, not very at all.
And that was everything. Yeah. Inventory, paint on the wall, the
That's
floorings.
crazy. That's crazy.
And did very poorly. We almost went out of business by year 2 and just barely hung on. And then things turned around slowly. I didn't make $1 till 10 or 15 years into it.
Yeah,
I made just enough to pay bills. That was it.
So I know you worked as a police officer for how many years before?
Just 3 years.
Okay, so for 3 years. So you were able to basically cover your salary for those 10, 15 years before you really could show any like profitability in this business.
My wife at the time, who I'm divorced now, worked at Unum. Yeah. So for about 7 years, we lived on her income. The first 3 lived on my police income. And just made it barely, but it was what a great lesson. I don't regret it.
I was going to say, so this has nothing to do with this podcast, but I think it has a lot of things to do with just perseverance and discipline, because I think most people would not have stuck through that, right? What was it that drove you in the moment of like, hey, we've been in this thing for 10 years. I'm having to, my wife is having to work. I'm barely making it. Like, what was it that was driving you? Because it wasn't the revenue.
No.
So what was it that was like that was in you that said, I've got to do this?
I felt like I was an explorer in a new land. I really did, because the studies that I did at that point, I was not very smart, but it was 100 times more than anyone else had done in this city, because physicians didn't know. They weren't trained. It wasn't their fault. They were very biased against anything that was written about nutritional therapies. And I traveled out of town to see mentors. There was no one here. I just knew I had some magic that I needed to share with the world. And, we came close to closing 2 or 3 times, but I endured. And my dad, I never asked him for money, but he did have to bail me out one time, one single time, and that was it. And then from then on, it just slowly but surely we built some momentum.
And did you, from the start, was it named Nutrition World?
Yes, it was.
That's a great name. Yeah. I mean, you were smart on that. That was a stellar choice.
Well, the problem was I didn't get Nutrition World domain name. So this idiot in Florida has it, and we keep asking him, "What will you sell it for?" Yeah. I would pay $10,000 right now. I wouldn't pay $100,000, but he doesn't like me, so he's not going to sell it. And he has this tiny little health food store in Florida, and he will not sell me that domain name. So it's nutritionw.com.
Yeah, which I send people to all the time. So let me ask you this. Let's go back to just the lean days. Were you able to see someone? You said you had to go out of town to find mentors, right? So were you able to kind of capture vision then? I mean, could you see like, man, these people were successful?
Yes.
Like it was happening other places, just not here.
Yes. Okay. Nashville, they had a great health food store. My dad lived there, and I couldn't wait to go see my dad because I wanted him to drop me off at the health food store.
Yeah.
And then Institute for Functional Medicine with Jeffrey Bland. I would go down to Florida and do seminars with him. Dr. Terry Smith here in town was the only physician who was into functional medicine back in those years, which was the 80s. And I learned a lot from Terry Smith. He was wonderfully open-minded in an early age of this. And then people would start coming in. More books were written. And, we didn't have the internet at that time.
Right.
But still, I was going to seminars every single year as much as I could and much as I could afford. Yeah. So I was a sponge.
So in your mind, go back to Ed Jones at 27 and now think of, where you're at now. And could you imagine at age 27 where we, not just nutrition world, but where we would be when it comes to things like we're talking about longevity and just everything that is out there? Did you see that, or is this still like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe
I'm still in awe that we are able and that the world has shifted to accepting us. Now, mainstream sometimes doesn't, traditional sometimes doesn't. Right. That's always the way it will be, difference of opinion. Yeah. And they want to control their own power, and they're having to lose some of that because just the fact that you can order drugs off the internet, just the fact all these things that are optional now that did not used to be. But I still, and I'm still just in awe that the world has changed enough to support my passion in life and yours. You can imagine 20 years ago talking about the things you are, you'd have been run out of town.
Oh yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, absolutely. No. And I mean, I feel like I happened to step into it probably a little further into there's more awareness about the topic of hormone optimization, whereas you truly were you're the pioneer, but again, it's kind of, you're in your DNA, because when I look at who you are now, you're still a pioneer, right? You do things on social media that nobody else does. And that's never stopped in who you are, which is really a testimony to the fact that you've just kind of stepped into your gifts, Well,
thank you. I am a rascal, and my dad was a gambler.
Yeah.
He loved Vegas more than anything.
Yeah.
And I became a gambler.
Yeah.
You have to be a gambler to be this kind of entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I'm willing to take the risk, which I have done many times. And I kind of get adrenaline from it. I do.
Yeah.
Calculated risk.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about longevity. In particular, you shared a little bit that you've always been interested in this. You started exercising and working out at age 14, I think you said, right? You're in the gym more than anybody I know, and earlier than anybody I know.
Yeah.
So just how did how did that discipline help you in your quest for longevity? And really, at what point in your life did that type of thinking, is there a shift, at age 45, right? The midlife crisis, so to speak. Was there ever a shift for you where you thought, hey, I need to start thinking differently than just what I look like in the mirror, and start thinking I need to look at this kind of big picture?
That is a good question. Because when you're in your 20s, it is more superficial. It is more, you think you're healthy if you've got a bigger bicep and you have lower body fat. That is what is equated to health. And in a way, it can be, because you are doing movements. And exercise, as Dr. Peter Attia says, strength training exercise is probably one of the most powerful mechanisms for longevity and health that we have.
Right.
We didn't know that back then. I just loved it as a hobby. But I think the turn always comes for most people in their first period of illness or their first period of struggle.
Yeah.
And I started having some irritable bowel syndrome that was pretty hard. Well, no, here's what the real turn was. Dr. Winters, I don't know if you remember him. He's probably retired now. He had a little place, a physician's office down in Collegedale, because I lived out there back when I was married. And I remember going in, and his partner was there. Winters was gone, and his partner gave me a physical. I believed in those back then. I don't now. And so he put the stethoscope up and said, this sounds kind of funny. I don't like what I hear. Well, I was a novice with medicine. I had no knowledge of all of this. I want to send you to a cardiologist. So we go down, and I'm already skeptical of drugs.
Yeah.
And now I use the right drugs at the right place at the right time in the small doses, because the third leading cause of death is pharmaceutical drugs. It just is long-term use of them. So I've always been skeptical. And so I go down, cardiologist, they do a test with using thallium. So they inject thallium and get on the treadmill. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I wasn't obsessive, but I had a Geiger counter on my refrigerator at my house, because I thought TVA was going to blow up one day and I could run out of Chattanooga and save my life and my family's.
Yeah.
I walk in my house and the freaking Geiger counter goes crazy. I'm sitting there thinking it's broke. No, it was the thallium that they injected in me lasted 30 days of radioactivity. I called the doctor a week later and said, do you realize how much radiation I got in that one injection? Well, no, it's safe. It's been approved by the FDA. I said, my Geiger counter is still going off, and this was 2 or 3 weeks after. That just turned me. It made me think, I have to take control of my own health. I don't trust these people or this institution anyway at that point. Yeah. And so I did. That was the turning point for me.
That's
my
good.
Geiger counter.
But I think that's such a good point, because I would venture to think that the physician did not intentionally, right?
No, he didn't.
That's it's the omission of understanding what people, and I think that everybody says, well, they've got the best interest. I don't necessarily disagree with that statement, but they clearly don't have that knowledge right there.
They don't have the knowledge that I want out of a toolbox.
That's right.
I want someone with a bigger toolbox.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if like I deal with we have 400 people a day now going into nutrition world. I deal with as best I can with everybody where they are.
That's right.
If they come in smoking 2 packs of cigarettes, I don't tell them how bad they are. I tell them, let's get down to 1 pack.
That's right.
If they come in there, which a lot do, say, I am so scared of medical testing. Okay, let's talk about what you can do.
Right.
That is not going to create this fear that you have, and will move forward at a slower pace.
Yeah.
That's all people ask for today.
Well, I think you have to encourage and empower people, and not everybody's going to do this, but as much as we can, to encourage and empower them to take ownership of their health, right? Hey, go from 2 to 1 packs of cigarettes. Hey, let's bypass the drive-through a couple times this week. But I have this in my own clinic where patients come in and, they've tried testosterone. It's not quote unquote working for them. And then you start digging in and, well, what's your diet like? Well, no change, right? What about exercise? Well, I don't have time. Okay. Well, guess what? Testosterone is not magic.
Yes.
You still have to put in the effort. And that is something that is, we, in our world where we're doing more functional medicine and integrative services, have to help people step out of the traditional setting because they're so, they've never been told this, right? They go in and say, hey, doc, I don't feel good. And here's a script and you're out the door.
Right.
And there's really no questions, no discussion. And so, that's just the exact opposite of how we want to practice, helping people.
Well, and here's the deal. Like you and many people I know now in the medical field, they understand that it's a partnership.
Right.
It isn't that I work for you and you tell me what to do and I have to obey or else you fire me. A partnership. Now, those are the people I love and respect. As you are, amazing partner. You never try to fear-base or condemn somebody or make them do what you want. No, you talk to them about it. If they're not comfortable, you go to plan B. That's all people can ask for in this city and this country.
Well, and the difference is now, when you started Nutrition World, nobody knew where to go for things that you practice, right? You had to be the person who was seeking out the information. That is not the case. Everybody has social media. Yes. Everybody has, these influencers that they follow. And, so you just have to get with the times there, right? I mean, whether you like it or not, people are going to have questions now because they watched a video, they read something, because it's readily available. Most of my patients have a fairly decent idea about the things that we do before they ever walk through the door.
Absolutely. I love it.
I do too. I think it actually enhances their experience, right? So let's go back to you on your longevity. I want to hear, so that you had this turning point from becoming radioactive. That's great. That's great. And so at that moment, you start thinking like, hey, I've got to take ownership of this. I've got to do this differently. And obviously then you start helping other people do it even further. But what is Ed Jones's like protocol? Like if you were to summarize, this is kind of what may call it the secret sauce, whatever. But this is like, these are the things that Ed Jones prioritizes on a consistent basis. How would the listener get some help out of hearing what you do?
Well, it has, as you would realize, evolved many times over my decades, 45 years. And, we do the best with the knowledge we have at the present time. And as we learn, we tweak it. Sometimes we completely change it. I mean, to me at this point, without going into depth, sleep and exercise are key. Yeah. But as far as the foods and the nutrients, I now look less at the cleanliness of foods, which shocks people if I talk to them about this. You mean you don't eat all organic? No. I would like to, but what I focus on is what we call the macros. I focus on the correct amount of protein, fats, and carbs, because that, to me, impacts your health more than actually being chemical free. Yeah. And then secondly, the nutritional platform that I have to do or want to do every single day, that the ultimate goal of nutritional supplementation is to protect what we call the mitochondrial. That's the function of each cell, part of a cell that produces energy. That's right. A 90-year-old has about 8% of the mitochondrial function that a 25-year-old has. That's the only that's the biggest reason they turn to be 90 and not working. Their body's falling apart. So I want to maintain mitochondrial function through the use of balanced blood sugar, through the use of macros, and also protecting the cells through my nutraceutical platform.
Yeah. So I know a little bit about your nutritional protocol, so to speak, if you would, but because I think it actually helps. And I share somewhat of a similar, knowing what you do. I share this with a lot of patients of this is, with blood sugar control, but give somebody some bullet points of if you said, hey, here's 3 or 4 things nutritionally that you could do. You said follow macros, but timing, how does one control glucose levels? Like how would you kind of help somebody in that arena?
Well, first off, I go back into the macro conversation. We need about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, men and women. You can get by with a half a gram, but I like to see 1 gram. You don't need 2. And to do that, you're going to need 2 protein drinks a day. That alone helps to balance blood sugar.
Yeah.
It just does. Why? Because one is it lessens the amount of room you have to eat all the carbs. And then secondly, I carry olive oil with me at every lunch and every supper because 2 tablespoons of olive oil twice a day is miraculous for everything from cognitive function to skin health to immune system. And of course, in my supplements, I'll take omega-3, but I want those healthy foods that have fat. So I do tend to go toward carnivore. I try to get the most organic meats I can, but I eat out a lot. I'm a single guy. I don't cook.
Right.
And so I think macros are the ultimate. The knife and fork's the most powerful weapon, and so using that with the right macros will make your weight healthy and help you to lower blood sugar. To me, and I have an old laptop that I saw in my house a few weeks ago at the top of a closet. I was married for 37 years. This was probably a 20-year-old laptop, and I wrote a book that's on that laptop that talks about the ability to live longer by the use of glucose meters. And I said if we can keep our glucose under 100 and no more than 130 after meals, it will not damage cells. That was foreign language 20 years ago. Right. Now, look, yours prescribing the continuous glucose monitors that you stick on the arm, and you see it every 5 minutes because we know the impact of that. Well, those macros produce that. Now, supplementation, I really, truly, keep in mind, this is my hobby. This is my life. This is my passion. I'm also a self-appointed guinea pig. That's why I take rapamycin, the drug that you and I have talked about. I'm doing 4 milligrams a day now, and I think it's, I weigh everything out, risk against benefit. I think the risk is low, and the benefit's potentially very great for us older people to live longer with less diseases. But as far as supplementation, I have reduced the amount of pills I take from 72 to 62, so don't be shocked.
Yeah.
But I went down to 62. Don't ask me why, but now I've cut corners. I'm at 62. Nobody needs 62 nutritional supplements.
Right.
It's because it's my hobby and my passion. But we do need, at 50 plus, you're going to have to do about 12. There's no other way around it. Now, to make life easy, I did design what's called the Core 4, which is the 4 supplements, the vitamin D, the magnesium, the multivitamin, omega-3s, all in a packet. And you just open that packet, take those pills every day. You can do it individually with 4 bottles. And you can save money by doing it by the 4 bottles if you don't mind the inconvenience. But I have seen so many people's health change, not slightly, but considerably through the use of this Core 4. And people who want to save money, just do it 5 days a week. Take weekends off. And then you can get 5 weeks out of it instead of 4. But those, we don't have a podcast long enough to go through what do they all do. But they're preventing damage to the body. They're opening detox pathways so that all this glyphosates and all these chemicals can be excreted instead of kept in the body, which damages cells. Energy level. Convert food to energy so we feel better. Skin health, hair health.
Neurologically.
Neurologic.
Yeah.
That's one of the 4 horsemen Dr. Attia talks about is the neurological system's one of the big things that is one of our big 4 risks. Of course, cardiovascular is number 1. That will kill 80% of us. That's why I focus on, maintaining good levels of all of those.
So one last question on the nutrition. Do you have a time sensitive aspect to like carbohydrates? Is there a certain time you say you should consume carbs or not?
I go back to personalizing is so important, and there's no way we know. Like you and you, or whoever, each of us would have a slightly different plan of action. All I can tell you is my plan of action, which is working at this stage, is I do about 60 to 70 carbs Monday through Friday, and I can go up to 200 on Saturday, Sunday. And also, that's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is I do double dosing of protein in the morning with some organic cheese, and I don't eat any carbs till 11 o'clock. Now, I do not believe in intermittent fasting. I think we lose muscle tissue. I don't think it's working for people. I believe that we need to stay in ketosis, though, until 11 o'clock. That is like fasting. So we eat no carbs after 6 o'clock at night, and then we don't eat carbs until 11, but you eat tons of protein and maybe a little fat from that cheese. You're still burning a little body fat. You're still doing the right intermittent fasting for health reasons, which is maybe digesting senescent cells and some disease cells, and it keeps my body fat low enough for me. Now, I did not get into single-digit body fat till I turned 60, and I've done everything, as you know. I've tried everything, every supplement, every plan of action. But when I went to this plan, I feel better. When I went to 7 days a week of this 60 carb, terrible for our health, in my opinion. I've seen blood work just go straight down, energy levels straight down. I don't believe in straight ketosis. I believe in this off and on plan.
Well, I think one of the things that, going back to the importance of protein early on, is the protection of muscle, right? Glycogen is stored in the muscle, and when you are fasting, to your point, then our body has the ability to use that as a source of energy. So when you are consuming some form of protein, it's a protection mechanism. So anyway, I love the fact, I use that a lot for my patients, and I will say, I've been able to follow that through CGMs or continuous glucose monitors, and I show people. And this is one of the things that I love about the glucose monitors is it brings awareness to people, right? If they had no idea, some things it's like, you ate ice cream, of course your glucose, but there are so many things that will surprise people of like, I had no idea.
Oh, constantly. Yes. And your clinic is phenomenal about helping people get these right meters.
Yeah.
I've had 5 people that I remember at this moment who it was so life-changing. One is accountability. 2 is informationally. But this one, and what I tell people is go to Optimize You, talk to them about getting this, because one of these ladies, she's about 62, phenomenal shape, and I looked at her phone to look at all those numbers, and she was like fasting of 82, which is optimal, would eat a meal, she's kind of carnivore, and she would go up to maybe 130, then she'd come back down, as you know, that would be very optimal. But then all of a sudden it started going to 220 and 240. Come to find out it was watermelon. It was the only food that ever elevated her to that level. Now, as you know, most of the people, it's too much rice, it's too much pasta, it's too much bread. I tell people, you want to eat ice cream, you just compare Haagen-Dazs ice cream with a regular non-fat, that skyrockets with non-fat. It does not skyrocket with Haagen-Dazs. And, as you know, my famous tequila drink, I mean, even Portofino has my name on the menu for Ed's Tequila Elixir. I've already had 4 people who have tested my tequila drink with your meters, and it does not elevate them, but maybe 4%, 5%. Yeah. And most alcoholic beverages will. That's why it won't give you a hangover, and it won't make you have weight gain.
No, I think it's a powerful tool for people in this, again, beginning of the year, they're trying to figure out how do I navigate these lifestyle. It's instead of, having the yo-yo diets and the, on again, off again, I've lost 20 pounds, I've gained 25. How do I change these behaviors? That's what people have to do. So you talked about the nutrition, you've talked about some nutraceuticals. We could talk for hours and hours on sleep, but I would love to hear, give me, if you said 3 quick tips for longevity related to sleep, right? I think we all agree sleep. You've helped me tremendously in my struggle with sleep. What would you have somebody who's struggling with sleep need to know? What
First off, tape your mouth shut every night. You have to buy the tape that we sell, or you can get online, because mouth breathing will devastate the ratio of carbon dioxide and oxygen to a point of depression, anxiety, don't get enough REM, you don't get enough sleep, and most people are going to mouth breathe. We don't have muscles that hold the mouth closed at night most times, and so when it opens, you're going to change all of that. There's a book called Breath by James Nestor. If you ever listen to it one single time, this guy went to a pulmonologist and had his nose stopped up for 2 months, and he did blood work, him and his friend, had to blood work every week for 2 months. He went from looking like he was 35 years old to an 80-year-old on blood work because he breathed through his mouth continuously for 2 months. And it only takes a night or two to get used to this. and it is life-changing. 2, if you have a budget to support it, you go buy an Aura Ring, O-U-R-A.
Yep.
Best Buy's has it. You don't have to order it directly. It has told me everything I want to know about the rim, the deep, the oxygen. It's predicted all 6 of my COVID cases because the day before I see, whoops, why did my temperature go up a half, and why does my pulse rate up 12 beats per minute when it never goes up? The next day I always get sick. So I know, and then it also tells me when I'm well, because with COVID, you have that lagging fatigue, and I still feel so tired. Am I sick? But when your temperature and pulse rate go back down, it tells you you're well. You just don't feel well yet. So an Aura Ring is that, and then I have to take something at night. I have to take I have to take things that have glycine, low dose melatonin. I cannot do high dose. I get too many wild dreams, but 1 to 2 milligrams of melatonin because it resets the sleep clock. And I have a sleep ebook that I have written that has about 20 pages. And if you Google Nutrition World Sleep ebook, you will get that free by downloading it. And I tell people, many of us have lost the rhythm of sleep. Yeah. Once you lose the rhythm of sleep, you're not going to find a magic pill. It's like you've lost the ability to swim in some turbulent waters. And as long as you're flailing out there, you might stay up for a while, but you're finally going to sink. You're not going to get anywhere. Well, we need to reset this rhythm of sleep. And it requires some putting a plan of action. A plan of action is what people need and want today. A plan, not skittle-scattle, let me read this article and do this one thing. It doesn't work.
Just doesn't work.
And so, talking to people like you and your staff, our coaches, reading our material on Instagram and on YouTube, we're humongously invested in education of people.
I love that. You actually used to have an extra Aura Ring, and you had me wear it. You remember that?
I did.
And it literally, I had to learn. I was, at the time, I just started, and I was super driven and wasn't sleeping well, and would get up early to work out and all this. I mean, it was just a quick little, like, you know what? I need another 30 minutes to an hour. Either I need to go to bed earlier, which is hard with my lifestyle with my kids, or I need to be okay and give myself a little grace and just stay in bed a little bit longer.
It's like the continuous glucose monitor.
Yeah.
It finally tells us where we are.
Yeah.
It really does. This morning, last night was the night where I like to get about 75 on my number. Well, I didn't do quite that because I was dreaming of my ex-wife, and it made me all upset. But that's another story. And even after 11 years.
Yeah.
But I ended up going to my office, our office, and I have a recliner. And because that ring told me I'm a little low, and today's Monday, and I got a big day, I went and spent 25 minutes meditating and gained 2 extra points on my ring by that doing 25 minutes. So that's just so important.
Yeah, just paying attention to that. Stress management. I feel like how we manage stress from a lifestyle behavior standpoint, right? As far as even, longevity and just, cardiovascular. I mean, there's so many studies attached to, cardiovascular outcomes and anxiety and depression and all these things that pertains to stress. What's Ed Jones do to manage stress besides tequila?
That is part of it, but that's also in modest doses.
It is. That's right.
And I don't have a problem over drinking. Many of people they can't drink one because then they'll drink 5.
Yeah.
I am blessed to not have that problem, so I do use that.
Yeah.
And I use that's the only drink that I feel is moderately healthy. Still not healthy, but moderately healthy. Well, I think as we age, and I'm a person observer, we're either going to get further into chaos, or we're going to start our journey seeking to get further toward a peaceful place in our consciousness and subconsciousness. Yeah. And it's going to take a plan on that one also, somewhat. Right. And that is carving out solitude time to me, not being totally distracted by social media, or what I'm saying. I found myself distracted, always wanting to distract myself into some world of busyness. And that's a world of doing. I want to be in a world of being. And to be in a world of being, it is about living in the moment.
Yeah.
And to live in the moment, it actually takes practice, because us Americans are probably one of the worst country in the world for wanting and needing to accomplish things. And how do we do that? I love the app Insight Timer. And that Insight Timer is a meditation timer app and has about 20,000 different meditators on there. Yeah. You get to pick. A lady named Sarah Blondin is my favorite one. And she's just amazing. It helped me through my hip problems because she had one on pain and she had these other things. And again, I go back to I'm the rascal that you will not be. I do IV ketamine every other week. Still do it.
Right.
I'm up to 86 IVs, which is a method of deep inner seeking because you let go, the ketamine makes you, if you let it, get rid of your ego. So Ed Jones, who owns Nutrition World and flies airplanes and works out every day, he just disappears. So what is left? Well, what is left is where the peace is. It's not the thing that's so impermanent, which is my biceps and my money and my store. It's actually the soul. The soul is what's so permanent. And a lifelong journey of meditating, I really feel like I've gotten 10 lifetimes through ketamine at Scenic City Neurotherapy.
Are you able, having done it 87 times, are you able to get to that place faster? Or is it still a process, where you can really kind of get all the distractions or the ego, so to speak, and get to start doing the work quicker?
Being that I have tasted what it's like to dispose of the physical body, I can marginally get there without ketamine.
Okay,
it's far easier.
Yeah.
For me now, the Scenic City does it for more medical purposes, which is memory, neuroplasticity, and anxiety and depression. I went there because of neuropathic pain within my hips. You and I talked about my hips. You were just so helpful. You got me to go to Dr. Higgins and had double hip replacement last year, and it's been miraculous. But, when I started sensing that I could combine the health benefits of ketamine with the journey seeking of myself, that is what I use it for. You could go into ketamine and have no interest in that, and you probably wouldn't get a whole lot of that part of it. But it's the only drug that allows you to journey into that place that I know about, other than maybe ayahuasca and some of the mushrooms. I don't want non-medical stuff.
Right.
I want to be supervised. I want heartbeats. I want all the things. And it makes me feel totally safe to do that.
No, it's good. Well, again, it's an example of your commitment to be a guinea pig. I mean, you're willing to do things that just most people aren't. I use Paul's app, which is a prayerful app, as well. It kind of helps lead you into those moments. One of the, I've got a kind of a mentor, business mentor, in addition to you, and we chose a mantra for every year. We just kind of choose like a couple words, and mine this year was just find rest, right? And because and it just goes to what you were saying. There's so many things that are distracting, and it's busyness, and even when we're not busy, we're busy, right? We're scrolling and just to have that deeper sense of where does rest come from? Because I think when you get there, your ability to allow the body to recover and heal, and again, tying into longevity, plays a significant role.
As long as I'm chasing something, and I don't mind chasing part of my day, but I'm going to fall apart. I'm going to die. I don't care how many nutrients I take and how many trips to the gym. This body, I rent this body.
Right.
And it's on loan to me. Everything I have is on loan to me. And once I realized I don't own it, it took some time, but I came to more peace. But it's really about the book Be Here Now by Ram Dass was the turning point in my life in my 20s, because he really just spoke about, are you really present in this moment, or are you living for the future next moment? I was living always for the future next moment. When I make enough money, when I get my kid grown, when I do this, when I blank, blank, blank. And one day I just realized I'm not living at all in the present moment. It's all about what can I get down the road. Yeah. It's never enough. Yeah. It will never be enough. That American Express Platinum card I have does not keep me warm at night.
That's so good. Well, even in having a place of a gratitude and appreciation for, I'm driving over here today, and it's you and I have actually, we shared some off air. We both had some interesting things happen to us today. And what I found was, in the moment of the stress and hurt and all the things my mind and heart's going through, I found myself in a place of gratitude, because I thought, you know what? Without the stress or without the pain, I wouldn't be seeking this moment. You're right. So it turned from this, like, oh my gosh, like I'm in like utter turmoil, to, man, I am so thankful that I have a place, an outlet to turn to,
Yes.
And just a heart of gratitude in the midst of the busyness.
I've gotten to where I have said this to many people the past few years. 95% of the time, I will never label anything bad or good any longer. Because how many things have happened to you that it was like, oh crap moment, that down the road it turned around to be one of the most positive things on earth.
So good.
And, I see it. I see the good come out of it so much more often than when I think bad and I catastrophize. I can be a pretty good catastrophizer.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Look, if this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. And I'm just going to basically be, homeless on the street.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But I have to do self-talk.
Yeah.
Self-talk.
No, every day. Last words. Anything that you would say, man, if I could impart this one form of wisdom.
Well, two, I think we all, if we don't have a plan, whatever that goal may be, does require a plan. I fly airplanes. I have flight plans. I leave from here, and I went to Mississippi 2 weeks ago. Well, it was a pretty good cloudy day, and I had to have plans to get there. If I didn't have plans, I wouldn't be in Memphis.
Right.
Secondly, is the podcast that I put out a couple weeks ago or a week ago about New Year's, and I never use the word resolution because we know how worthless those are. But it had to do with, I think, the number top of the list of things that has affected me and changed my life for the negative, which is really letting fear run my life. And I talk for about 18 minutes talking about when I changed my middle name. When I got divorced, my middle name was N.O. I changed it to Yes. And every single thing in my life from that moment forward. Do you want to go over here and try this new dinner? Yes. Do you want to learn to salsa dance? Yes. Do you want to? Yes. Yes. And as long as it's not going to hurt anybody else. And that yes word is not easy because I got so ingrained into the comfort zone of my life. And if you go to YouTube, you can look up the video and I talk a lot about it. But just me changing the word yes, and I encourage people, the yes is so important. If it's not going to hurt someone else and it's not risky, say yes in life because in about 30 more blinks of the eye, I'll be out of here. And I think, a gentleman who had spent a lot of time with a lot of dying people, really said that the number one thing is they said was, I never thought it would happen this quick. I thought I had more time. And I now realize that I really probably don't have that much time. I wear a ring here that says Memento Mori on it, and it basically says you could die any moment. And that reminds me every single day, every moment. And it makes me find moments of awe when I know how little the future is for me. Just like this moment with you and I. This is a moment of awe because we connect. You're my friend, and I love sharing my heart. And, these are special moments. Yeah. So thank you for allowing me to come on, Josh.
No, thank you. And to tie in your new middle name, Yes, as you were saying that, I just thought, it was your yes that allowed nutrition or Optimize You to take over the basement of Nutrition World. And so without you saying yes, we wouldn't be anywhere that we are today. So thank you for continuing to practice that Ed, Yes, Jones mentality. I appreciate
I've had
that.
a lot of partnerships, a good number. None have been as stellar as yours and I agree. And I know that will continue on forever. And, I wasn't a yes person. If you had asked me about coming or we had talked about you and I partnering back in the day when I was married, I said, no, it's a little scary. No, I don't want to do that. I better not. All these reasons would come up. Yeah. Well, that's changed. So everybody change your middle name to Yes.
Yeah. And if anybody, I'm going to share this real quick story and then we'll close. But if anybody has a different opinion of Ed Jones, I'm going to share that going back to the use of this space that we were in, we just started. I'd been in a location for about 3 months. I was subleasing out of a chiropractic office whom I still love, the guy who let me do that. Had this opportunity with you guys at Nutrition World, and I will never forget it. I was sitting there thinking, like, what does this say to the community? I'm failing. I've had to move 3 months into it. I didn't really know you all that well at the time. And I go over to look at the space, and I thought, this is too good to be true, and I'll never forget it. You literally said to me, you said, I remember what it was like to start a new business. I remember how hard it was. So here's my offer. I'm going to give you 6 months free rent. So I moved in May, and I did not pay rent until October.
I forgot that.
Yeah, of course you did, because that's just who you are. Is my point, is that you extended. You had nothing in it from a financial. It could have been a disaster, but you believed in me and you gave me a hand, just like your dad did to $25,000 to open up Nutrition World. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you've done. NutritionW.com. Holistic Navigator on YouTube. Where else do people need to go to listen to
Vital Health Radio? My Clinton and I. That's where I really throw out a lot of little tidbits of health information that is in the media, and I try to clarify things that are true, not true. And I like to pick on Clint because he lives in East Ridge, and I always talk about they only have outhouses in East Ridge, many things. But that, and of course Nutrition World Chattanooga on Instagram, which I'm really proud of our Instagram. We've got actually millions now who have watched our Instagram. And back to the S word, it took guts for you to say yes after 3 months at one location, and you're already moving.
Right.
That is a wow there. So you're a hero too, my friend.
Well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you, as always, for spending the past 45 minutes with me, and we'll bring you back on soon.
All right, my friend.